I'm a beta, but my husband is a top-tier alpha. He comes from a prominent family, cultured, refined, a perfect gentleman. The only unconventional thing he's ever done is marry me. No one approved of our marriage, but we didn't care. Until our 3rd anniversary. I couldn't take it anymore. I asked for a divorce. After all, if I didn't leave soon, all that stuff in the basement was going to end up inside me. Baby, what did you say? Say it again. Adrien's voice was soft, as if he genuinely hadn't heard me. I instinctively tightened my grip on my chopsticks. Staring at the full breakfast spread he'd made, the words "I want a divorce" got stuck in my throat. Is this about last night? The mere mention of last night made my face flush, and I wanted to curl up into a ball like a cooked shrimp. Unfortunately, the ache in my lower back wouldn't let me. Adrien watched me intently, a look of helplessness on his handsome, gentle face. After a moment, a soft chuckle escaped his lips. He stood up, walked over, and pulled me into his arms. I habitually parted my legs to straddle his lap, resting my chin on his shoulder in defeat. Please don't mention last night again. I could feel the heat in my cheeks, my voice pleading. Adrien had always been easygoing, just like now. Hearing my request, he nodded while rubbing his palms together to warm them before massaging the small of my back. Okay, we won't talk about it. I let out a sigh of relief at his promise. The pressure on my back felt so good, and with a full stomach, I started to feel drowsy. Sleepiness began to swallow my reason, and I mumbled again without thinking. I want a divorce. Hiss. The pressure on my back suddenly intensified, snapping me awake. I tried to get up, but Adrien pressed down on a sensitive spot. All my strength vanished. My calves, which had been cramping all night, didn't have the power to hold me up. Louis. It was usually baby, honey, or Louis Bear. This was only the 2nd time he'd said my full name with that tone. The first time was when I got drunk at a college reunion and chatted for a bit with my first love. When I turned around, I saw Adrien standing in the shadows, holding an umbrella. He was smiling, but his tone was like a rainy day, chilly and damp. His S-class alpha pheromones were overwhelming. I could barely breathe. My ex, who was just a beta, stood no chance. Back then, Adrien had also smiled just like that and softly called out, "Louis." I stiffened and scurried under his umbrella, awkwardly introducing him to my disappointed-looking ex. This is my husband, Adrien. The crushing pressure of the pheromones vanished instantly. Adrien even wrapped an arm around my waist and politely said goodbye to my ex. That night, he cooked a huge dinner. I naively thought the incident was over. It wasn't until the atrophied reproductive cavity deep inside me was forced open that I realized Adrien was still furious. Remembering how I had to take a week off work after that, my throat trembled with fear. Taking advantage of his momentary distraction, I ducked out of his embrace. I'm going to be late for work. I'm leaving. You should really think about it. I don't know if Adrien thought about it, but I knew I was about to die of anxiety at my desk. I was just about to get a cup of tea when my phone buzzed. It wasn't a message from Adrien, but from an old college roommate who's a coder now. His message was just a few words, followed by a shocked emoji. "Louis, there's a hidden tracking app on your phone." I leaned back in my chair and breathed a sigh of relief. Just as I thought. I remembered a few days ago when Adrien asked me to grab something from the nightstand, and I accidentally spotted a micro camera pointed directly at our bed. A deep sense of helplessness washed over me. "Yeah, I know. Thanks for letting me know. I'll buy you dinner sometime." My roommate hesitated. "Aren't you going to call the cops?" My heart leaped into my throat, and I quickly typed back, No. It's just a thing between my husband and me, you know." My roommate sent back a winking emoji. We chatted for a few more minutes before I quickly logged off. I stared at my computer wallpaper, thinking that compared to the cameras and the tracker, the stuff in the basement was the truly terrifying part. So terrifying it didn't seem to fit Adrien's entire personality. This brought back the reason I married Adrien in the first place. I had just graduated from college and couldn't find a job, so I was temporarily living at home. Though calling it home was a stretch. My mother was a strong-willed Omega who died in a car crash when I was 10. A month after her funeral, My beta father, a quiet man his whole life, married another beta. Soon after, she gave birth to an omega son with a genetic disorder. My stepmother wasn't mean to me, just indifferent. My father sent me to a boarding school and deposited money into my account every month like clockwork. Whenever I came home for the holidays, I felt like an outsider. Years of neglect, combined with my beta status, gradually made me as quiet and withdrawn as my father. After I graduated and came home, my stepmother, seeing I was still unemployed, started trying to set me up on dates. She said my brother's condition had worsened and he needed emergency surgery. The family couldn't afford the medical bills, and if I got married, the generous payment from my spouse's family could help them through the crisis. I didn't want to sell my marriage for money, but seeing my father stooped back and the cigarette glowing between his fingers all night, I gave in. I went on the dates. Every man my stepmother found was put off by my silence and my outdated clothes. When it came to the topic of the payment, I would get nervous and stammer while trying to argue against it, sabotaging every single date. After my fourth failed attempt, I ran into Adrien. He was S University's top student and campus idol, the person I admired most throughout my entire college life. Everyone wanted to be like Adrien, and I was no exception. Someone who lives in the shadows will always long for the light. If it hadn't been for a mixer between the finance and computer science departments, a golden boy like him and I might never have met. But met just meant we exchanged contact info. Now that we'd graduated, that flimsy connection was basically non-existent. But I never expected to see him here, and he even greeted me first. I awkwardly explained why I was there. The tips of my ears, hidden under my hair, burning hot. Adrien was surprised to hear I was upset about a failed date. Then, with a kind expression, he said, "Why don't you marry me? My family has been pushing me to get married, too. You can help me deal with them, and I can help you with your financial troubles. What do you say?" Hearing the playful, lazy lilt in his voice as he said, "What do you say?" I clutched my chest to quiet my racing heart, mumbled a farewell, and fled. As soon as I got home, I heard my father's weary sigh. He said, "Your brother's condition is worse. He needs surgery right away. Your stepmom and I have decided to sell the house to cover the costs." This house was our family's only asset. Looking at the stooped figure in the doorway, I sent Adrien a message. He replied almost instantly, "I'm so glad. Here's to our partnership." The wedding happened quickly. The substantial sum of money Adrien paid brought my brother back from the brink. It also pulled our family back from the edge of a cliff onto solid ground. I was incredibly grateful to Adrien. So, no matter how many people said I wasn't good enough for him, I pretended not to hear. The moment they released the doves, he leaned in and kissed me. In that instant, I finally understood what it meant to feel your knees go weak and have fireworks go off in your head. After we got married, Adrien was a perfect gentleman. He never crossed any lines without my permission. But I almost never said no. Slowly, the marriage started to feel more and more real, and Adrien and I grew closer and closer. If I hadn't stumbled into the basement a few days ago, we could have stayed happy like this for a long, long time. Thinking about it, I let out another deep sigh. My coworker tapped me on the shoulder. "Louis, it's my birthday party tonight. You want to come?" There would be a lot of people. I have a physiological aversion to crowds. But before I could refuse, he continued, "Sucks, you never come to anything I invite you to. Not even my birthday. I invited the whole studio, you're the only one missing." I was floored. "What time does it end?" Seeing a glimmer of hope, my coworker's face lit up. "We can be done by 8. I'll drive you straight home, you won't miss your curfew." I shot back, "I don't have a curfew, I just don't like coming home too late because Adrien gets off work early. I didn't want him to be home alone." "All right, don't worry. We'll wrap up at 8 sharp. I'll personally drive you home." I hesitated for a moment before finally nodding. As soon as my coworker left, a message from Adrien popped up. "Baby, what time are you getting off?" I fumbled with my phone, typing and deleting for what felt like an eternity. Just as I finished a sentence, my team lead called me away. I didn't get a chance to check my phone again until the end of the day. Seeing over a dozen missed calls and messages from Adrien, I suddenly felt the urge to run. As I was debating whether to reply, my coworker appeared. "Let's go. Get in the car." I immediately turned off my phone and got into his car. Everyone at the party was having a blast except for me. I realized I still really don't like crowded places. Watching my coworkers drink and cheer, I poked listlessly at the food in my bowl. A thought suddenly popped into my head. The food here isn't even as good as what my husband makes. The thought made me pause. "Louis, what are you thinking? You're about to divorce him, why are you still thinking about him?" After viciously scolding myself, I threw myself into eating. By the time the meal was over, I glanced at my watch and saw it was already 8. I immediately shot up to leave. My coworker, looking apologetic, offered to drive me home. I looked at the room full of people, shook my head, and refused. "It's fine, you stay and have fun. I'll grab a cab." I finally managed to get a ride, and by the time I got home, it was nearly 9. Seeing the house all lit up, I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. I lifted my sleeve and sniffed, making sure I didn't smell like anything strange before taking out my key and letting myself in. "You're home?" I jumped like a mouse spooked by a cat, every hair on my body standing on end. Seeing Adrien leaning against the dining table, I felt so guilty I could drown in it. Yeah, I'm back." He walked over in a few steps, his face still holding that gentle smile. "Did you work late tonight? I sent you some messages, but you didn't reply." I mumbled and nodded, only noticing the dishes on the dining table when I turned. "You cooked?" Adrien took my coat and held it in his arms. "Yeah." "Dinner was ready at 7. I've been waiting for you." I subtly touched my stomach, which felt like it was about to burst, and let the guilt consume me. "Why didn't you just tell him? Making someone wait for so long." "I'm sorry, I had to work late and forgot to tell you. Then my coworkers bought some late-night snacks, so I grabbed some too." I kept my head down, hiding in the shadows, not daring to look at Adrien's expression. Adrien chuckled softly, his large hand landing on my head and ruffling my hair gently. "It's okay. Since you've already eaten, go get washed up. I'll put the food in the fridge." Adrien was so understanding. The guilt in my heart grew even heavier. Even the thought of divorce started to fade. I took Adrien's hand, stood on my toes, and gave him a light hug. "I'm sorry." Adrien froze for a second, then raised his arms to hug me back. A sigh escaped him, right above my head. "It's okay. But if this happens again, please let me know ahead of time. Otherwise, the ingredients will go to waste. Okay, baby?" I nodded, a bittersweet feeling welling up inside me. "Okay." After my shower, I lay on our large bed, staring at the huge wedding photo on the wall, nervously twisting my fingers. A golden boy like Adrien had been so accommodating to me after our marriage. Maybe the things in the basement weren't his? Maybe the cameras were just to prevent burglaries. After all, we had so many valuable things in the house. And the tracker on my phone might not be for surveillance, but for protection. The Grant family was powerful, they must have enemies. If I were ever kidnapped for ransom, that tracker would be the best way to find me. Lying there in my silk pajamas, I kept trying to talk myself down. The idea of divorce grew fainter and fainter, almost disappearing completely. "Baby, I'm gonna wash this coat for you." Adrien's voice called out, and I immediately got up and went to the bathroom. "Which one?" Adrien held up the camel-colored coat I had just worn today. "This one. It has a really unpleasant smell on it." "Did you spill something?" I scratched my head, thinking for a long time. "No, I don't think so." The smile on Adrien's lips faded slightly. "Then it must be the smell of pheromones." I nodded. "Probably." Adrien leaned in to smell it, his perfect profile facing me. My stupid crush was acting up again. "The scent is pretty strong. Were you very close to someone?" "Not really. Anyway, as a beta, I couldn't smell it." "Are you sure you're not mistaken?" "I wasn't really close to anyone today." "Is that so?" Adrien smiled. "Are you done with your shower?" I nodded, and droplets of water flew from the damp ends of my hair. Adrien put the coat in the washing machine and added a lot of detergent. I was confused and about to ask why, but he had already stood up and walked over to me. His strong, Slender fingers brushed my dark hair back. His voice, tinged with a smile, laziness, and a hint of helplessness, floated down. Why do you never dry your hair? I was about to pull back, but an arm wrapped around my waist. The next thing I knew, Adrien was lifting me up in his arms. Be good. Let's get your hair dried first. I thought about struggling, but then I figured, why bother? Holding a hairdryer makes my arm tired. If Adrien was willing, I might as well let him. He habitually set me down on the bathroom counter. The warm air from the hairdryer and Adrien's gentle fingers moved through my hair. I looked at our reflection in the mirror, one tall, one short, our skin tones a clear contrast, and it belatedly hit me that him adding so much detergent was not exactly normal. Although Adrien sometimes did the laundry, it was usually just my smalls. And I was pretty sure that coat was dry clean only. As this thought surfaced, another one popped into my head, and I blurted it out without thinking. Adrien, are you jealous? Adrien's hand, weaving through my hair, paused. He turned off the hairdryer. A light kiss landed on the crown of my head. As your husband, I think it's normal to be jealous. It's because I love you that I feel possessive. My head was spinning, focused entirely on that one phrase. I love you. Adrien had told me he loved me many times before, but it was mostly in bed, when neither of us was fully coherent. This was the first time he'd said it so clearly, face to face. My hands and feet suddenly felt clumsy, and I didn't know where to put them. But I love you too, and I don't feel possessive over you. Adrien's hands tightened on my waist, and he suddenly kissed me. When the kiss ended, I was breathless, collapsed in his arms. Would you be happy if I did this with someone else? My muddled brain scrambled to process his words. Adrien kissing someone else? The very image sent a dull ache through my heart. So, I did feel possessive of Adrien? While I was still trying to sort out my feelings, Adrien carried me to the bedroom. There now. I noticed you haven't been sleeping well these past few days. I warmed up some milk for you. A warm glass of milk was held out in front of me. I didn't think twice, nor did I notice the deep meaning or the fleeting obsession in Adrien's eyes. I just took the glass and drank all the milk in one go. The milk was a little sweet, different from usual. I licked the residue from the corner of my mouth. Did you put sugar in this? Adrien didn't answer. He reached out, brushed a stray piece of hair from my forehead, and rested his forehead against mine. No sugar. I was lost in his eyes, my head getting dizzier and dizzier. It wasn't until my vision blurred that I realized something was wrong. I turned my head to look at the empty glass, and connecting it to the cameras, the tracker, and the basement, an unbelievable thought flashed through my mind. Did you drug me? Before I could even finish the question, my mind went blank, and my eyes closed against my will. Just before I lost consciousness completely, I heard Adrien's gentle voice. Baby, I could have kept up the act for so much longer. Why did you have to ask for a divorce? When I woke up again, I felt sore all over but otherwise fine. I forced my eyes open and looked around. The room was unfamiliar. Besides a bed, there was nothing. I lifted my hand to rub my forehead and felt a tug on my wrist. I looked down and saw a chain, about as thick as my thumb. Calling it a chain wasn't quite right. It looked more like a sex toy. The little person inside my head was screaming bloody murder. What the hell is going on? I tried to rack my brain, and finally, in the fog of my mind, a possibility emerged. I think Adrien has imprisoned me. Does this mean I don't have to go to work? The moment the thought appeared, I slapped myself hard across the face. Louis, what is wrong with you? The pain snapped me back to reality and also caused the door to open. I looked up to see Adrien walking in. When he saw my face, his expression instantly turned cold. This was the first time in our 3 years of marriage that I had ever seen him look at me so coldly. He was like a completely different person from the gentle, refined Adrien I knew. How could one person be so different? Before I could figure it out, he was standing in front of me. His cool fingertips traced my cheek, soothing the stinging pain. Why did you hit yourself? He's asking? He has the nerve to ask? I held up my wrist, the chain rattling. What is the meaning of this? Adrien hooked a finger through it. It means I'm locking you up so you can never see anyone else again. That way, you won't want a divorce. I cleverly latched onto the key piece of information in his sentence. So, Adrien thinks I want a divorce because I've fallen for someone else? It was unbelievable. Even if I did like someone else, who would possibly like me back? I wanted to scream this at him, but I didn't dare. The moment I met Adrien's cold gaze, the words died in my throat. I wasn't looking at anyone else. My throat was dry, and the explanation came out one halting word at a time. Adrien didn't seem to want to hear it. He raised a hand and pressed his fingertips to my lips. "Sure, don't talk. You used to tell me where you were all the time. But that night, you didn't even bother to reply to my messages. You came home late, reeking of cheap pheromones and alcohol. Baby, is that what you call not looking at anyone else?" The corners of Adrien's eyes were red, the image of a refined gentleman completely shattered. "You've always been so good. That person must have put you up to it, right? Baby, tell me who it is. Please?" Adrien's fingers were forcing my cheeks apart. I couldn't possibly respond to his ridiculous accusation. MMPH, Adrien. I didn't. Adrien was lost in his own assumptions, deaf to anything else. "And you want a divorce? Do you think you can live without your husband? I took you from a shy little thing and made you so polished. You won't even drink anything but the finest tea now." Adrien unbuttoned my shirt. He bit down on my collarbone, grinding it between his teeth. "You only sleep on the softest mattresses under silk comforters. Even designer clothes aren't comfortable enough, they have to be handmade by our family tailor." Pain started in my stomach. I tilted my chin up, tears streaming from the corners of my eyes. Adrien kissed them away one by one. "So timid, so delicate, and you still want a divorce?" He wedged his fingertips between my lips, teasing me like a puppy. "Are you still going to talk about divorce? Do you still want one?" Adrien's voice was condescending, as if he was certain of my answer. The thought of divorce, which had already started to fade, now roared back to life, fueled by pain and anger. I dug my nails into Adrien's arm and squeezed out a single word from my throat. "Yes." Everything went silent. Even breathing felt dangerous. Adrien slowly pulled his fingers away. Moisture slid down my cheek and onto my neck. His fingertips rested on my carotid artery, where my pulse was hammering. Adrien looked up, his gentle, warm expression returning. "Say that again, baby." I swallowed hard, my heart rate slowing. The fingers on my neck felt like a sharpened blade, my body screaming warnings of mortal danger. Suddenly, I felt incredibly wronged. I shoved Adrien away with all my might. "I want a divorce. You spy on me, you put a tracker on my phone. You even put a camera in the bathroom. And all that stuff in your basement." I completely broke down. From discovering all this to confirming it was all Adrien, to him finally showing his true colors. It was all too much. My vision blurred with tears, and I felt pathetic. I grabbed the arm of the stunned Adrien beside me and bit down. Hard. The more upset I was, the harder I bit. I didn't let go until I tasted blood. Adrien's expression didn't change at all. He even raised an eyebrow and offered me his other unharmed arm. "Go ahead. When you're done, you can stop talking about divorce." I wouldn't bite. I pushed him away and tried to get up, only to find that my ankle was also chained. "Unlock it." Adrien shook his head. "No." We were at a standstill. "Who is he?" I turned my head in disbelief. "Did you hear a single word I just said?" Adrien nodded. You heard me and you're still asking about him? Does he even exist?" I kicked away the hand that was caressing my ankle. "What did I say?" Adrien grabbed my other foot, tightening his grip so I couldn't possibly break free. It was definitely going to bruise. "You said you wanted a divorce." I waited for him to continue, trying to even my breathing. And then, Adrien paused, his expression and posture seeming to say, "There was more?" I knew it. "You only hear what you want to hear. Do you even know why I want a divorce? You didn't even ask. You just went straight to locking me up." "Adrien, I can't take you anymore. I'm 23 years old, and this is the most I've ever spoken in my life. It's also the first time I've ever been so emotional. And it's all thanks to Adrien. Adrien was like a rock, impossible to communicate with. What else was I supposed to do? Just stand by and watch you divorce me? Here we go again. I already gave him the answer, and he's still like this. There's no talking to him. How do you communicate with a stubborn rock? Anyway, it's not like I'm a princess with magical gems. The anger inside me dissipated. Fine, I want a divorce. Lock me up for the rest of my life if you want. At least I wouldn't have to work or socialize. I quickly rolled to the other side of the bed, away from a certain rock. Now, whenever I said the word divorce, Adrien's face would change. He'd become cold, obsessive, like a total psycho. He stared at me for a long time with an piercing gaze before finally getting up and leaving. Just before the door closed, I snapped, "Bring me my console. The event in my game ends tomorrow, and I'm only one level away from finishing." My only answer was the sound of the door slamming shut. I clutched the corner of the blanket, counting in my head while my thoughts raced. Did Adrien call in sick for me? There goes my perfect attendance bonus for the month. I mentally calculated my savings, an 8-figure nest egg. But then I remembered that if we divorced, none of it would be mine, and I sank back into depression. I'll give Adrien one more chance. If he still refuses to explain, then we're getting a divorce. I finished my grumpy train of thought just as I counted to 1,314 seconds. I was about to start on 15 when Adrien came in with a tray of food. Next to the plate was my gaming console. I waited for him to get closer, then reached for the console. But Adrien, as if predicting my move, pressed my hand down. Eat first, then play. My eyes fell on the 3 meat dishes and 1 vegetable, and my mouth started to water. But I remembered I was still angry and stubbornly turned my face away. I want a divorce. Adrien ignored me, picked up a piece of cola chicken with his chopsticks, and held it to my lips. Eat first. My stubbornness crumbled. I opened my mouth and took a bite. The delicious flavor was heavenly. I ate with satisfaction, and Adrien fed me with satisfaction. After the last spoonful of soup was gone, I reached for the console again. Adrien didn't stop me this time. He just asked, "Do you still want a divorce?" I jabbed the power button. Yes. Adrien's hand tightened on the tray, veins popping on his hand and forehead. He fought to keep his voice gentle, but it was strained with repressed obsession. "Baby, was the food not good?" I turned off the console. "So, what does that have to with a divorce? Why is it so hard for you to just explain?" I quickly wiped away the tears from my eyes and turned to face the wall. "Adrien, you're the one forcing this divorce." Adrien put the tray down and wrapped his arms tightly around my waist, his hot, wet kisses landing on the back of my neck. If I were an omega, that's where my glands would be. But I'm a beta, so it's just smooth skin. I remembered something the younger relatives said during a visit to the Grant family estate. Cousin Adrien is an S-class alpha. How is he going to handle his rut every month if he's married to a beta? I hid in the bathroom, thinking, I handle your cousin's rut by taking a week off work. But after my silent retort, a wave of desolation washed over me. It's true. Even though Adrien would pin me to the bed during every rut, afterward he would always sneak off to give himself shots. The needle marks on his arm were as numerous as the love bites on my skin. Thinking of this, I clutched my chest. The thought of divorce, once a dying ember, began to smolder again. Adrien held my waist tighter, his hot breath tickling my ear. "Give me some time. I'll explain everything to you. Okay?" I didn't nod, but I let my tense body relax. Our 2 hearts were so close, yet so far apart. I beat my game several days ago, and Adrien still wasn't ready. When he came in again with another tray of delicious-smelling food, I couldn't help but ask, how much longer do I have to wait? Ever since Adrien dropped the act, he didn't bother to hide anything anymore. His expression changed in a flash. Like right now, 1 second his eyes were smiling, the next they turned dark and heavy. "I'm not ready yet. Just eat your food first." I didn't know if he really wasn't ready or if he just didn't want to tell me. Either way, my patience was gone. I wanted a divorce, but I didn't want a divorce. It was like two different Louis were living in my head. Their arguing and shouting was making my brain feel like it was about to explode. I'm giving you 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I want an answer. Maybe it was the coldness in my tone, or maybe the firmness, but this time Adrien didn't try to brush it off. He just gently set the tray down. With my back to him, I stared at the blank white wall, wondering what his explanation could possibly be. 10 minutes later, I sat up and turned around. I froze. Adrien was crying. It was the first time I had ever seen him cry. He was crying silently, tears streaming down his face. He looked pitiful. I was at a loss. What are you crying for? I haven't even started crying. I'm just asking for an explanation. Not your life. Why are you crying? I clumsily tried to wipe his tears away. Adrien grabbed my hand and brought it to his lips, planting soft, scattered kisses on my fingertips. Do you know that betas can't retain an alpha's scent? I nodded. Of course I knew that. So what does that have to do with you installing cameras and trackers? Adrien didn't answer, just asked another question. And do you know that the more high-ranking an alpha is, the more insecure they are? I didn't know that. So you installed cameras and trackers because you're insecure? Adrien nodded. Have I ever told you about my father and my dad? About my childhood? I shook my head. No. Forget his father and his dad. I'd barely even been to the main Grant family estate. The few times I did go, I met Adrien's father. He was an alpha whose stern presence, still hinting at his handsome youth, was so heavy that I could barely handle a few simple questions from him. Later, because I didn't like the Grant family's stuck-up relatives, and because they looked down on me for being a beta, I saw no reason to go out of my way to make myself uncomfortable. So for every holiday gathering, I'd find an excuse not to go. Over time, Adrien assumed I just didn't like noisy scenes and started going back less and less himself. I had never heard anything about his father or his dad. And as for Adrien's childhood, I had asked him about it once when I was sharing my own story, but he just brushed it off. Now that he was offering to tell me, I was intrigued. Adrien carefully linked his fingers with mine. Both of my fathers are alphas. That first sentence fried my brain. Alpha and alpha? How do you have a baby? I stared at Adrien in shock. You're not your dad's biological son? Adrien looked at me intently, the red-rimmed corners of his eyes lifting in a stifled laugh as he pinched my cheek. I blushed and looked away. Why did he have to be so handsome when he smiled? Who was he trying to charm? Adrien caught my flustered gaze and pulled me into a hug. See? Your husband is all yours. My face burning, I pushed him away. Still calling yourself my husband? You're about to be my ex-husband. Adrien couldn't stand hearing that. His face darkened again, looking like a storm was about to break. I gritted my teeth. So we're not even pretending anymore. Huh? Keep talking. Adrien grabbed my hand and nipped my fingertip. My alpha dad gave birth to me. My jaw dropped wide enough to fit an egg. So your alpha father got your alpha dad pregnant? Adrien's fingertip traced my lips, his eyes holding that familiar, hungry look. A dual alpha family? But I thought alpha's reproductive cavities were atrophied. How could he get pregnant? Did he just force it? My confusion must have been obvious because Adrien explained my dad almost died giving birth to me, so my father hates me. I was supposed to be a chain to keep my dad by his side, but I almost killed him instead. What? Who was the chain? To keep who? For the first time, I felt like my grasp of English wasn't very good. Adrien continued, but I was useless. My dad ran away during my first birthday party. Wait, I know it's rude to interrupt, but I had to. Why did your dad run away? Weren't he and your father in love? Now it was Adrien's turn to be confused. Why would they be in love? My dad didn't love my father. He was my uncle's fiancé. My father just stole him. These rich families are too complicated. I want to go home. I felt dizzy as Adrien pulled me tighter into his embrace. I don't know if they loved each other, but I know they both put trackers on each other. It's that ridiculous alpha insecurity. As Adrien's deep, elegant voice washed over me, I slowly started to understand where his psycho tendencies came from. Genetics. His father was a psycho, And his dad wasn't much better. Subdermal tracking implants, real-time location reporting. Wasn't he the one who was stolen? Why would he be so possessive of the person who took him? Adrien's father installed cameras in the house. Adrien's dad put a tracker on his lover. And now here was Adrien doing both. He learned all the wrong lessons. I lay limply in Adrien's arms. It wasn't really Adrien's fault, I thought. It was his family's fault for not teaching him proper values. That's why he copied what he saw. A blurry image flashed in my mind. A tiny Adrien in a little suit, desperately pounding on a closed door, but no one answered. He could only sit on the steps, hugging his knees and crying pitifully. My heart instantly softened. But you can't just copy your father and your dad. You know it's wrong. I tried to gently guide him. Adrien's soft kisses landed on my face. But I'm so insecure. I can't leave my scent on you, and every day when you come home, I can smell so many other people on you. This was the first time I had felt the full force of Adrien's jealousy. As he said it, he was practically sucking the skin off my cheek. So, baby, please don't divorce me, okay? Adrien's earlier darkness was gone. He was like a god who had stepped down from his pedestal, begging a mortal for affection. He was so careful, so vulnerable. It was impossible not to feel my heart melt. My hand, hovering in the air, finally came to rest on his back. With the same force he used to hold me, I held him back just as tightly. I was released from the empty room at the end of the hall. When Adrien unlocked the bracelet, he seemed reluctant. The moment I stepped out, I felt a little reluctant myself. Honestly, I didn't want to go to work. I just wanted to stay in there, be weighted on hand and foot, and live like that forever. But I couldn't. I couldn't let Adrien fight for our family all by himself. I slowly talked myself down, successfully burying the words "lock me up" again deep inside. I went back to my 9-to-5 routine. Adrien started driving me to and from work every day. Everyone at the office envied my luck, having a husband who was handsome and rich. I didn't say anything, just kept hitting snooze on the alarm that went off every 10 minutes. Then I'd open my chat with Adrien and give him a real-time report of what I was doing. Life went on peacefully for a few more days, and then I remembered the basement. Did you buy all that stuff in the basement yourself? Right after we finished, my sore legs were draped over Adrien's shoulders. I shot him an annoyed glare. Adrien showed no remorse whatsoever. In fact, he shamelessly said, "None of that stuff even works." I was exhausted and furious. I planted my foot on the source of my fatigue. Then what were you planning to do? Are those things even meant for humans? I kicked his hand away from my ankle and gave my final order. Get rid of all of it tomorrow. I'm checking when I get home from work. Adrien was not happy. He sat up and kissed me. A kiss is the most powerful aphrodisiac. It was another wild night. The next day, I left work early and went down to the basement. Seeing the glass display cases still fully stocked, I pulled out my phone to call him. Before I could dial, a small button on one of the cases caught my eye. I walked over and pressed it. With a low rumble, the wall opposite the display case slid open. Warm light flooded the space, revealing a red satin box encrusted with jewels. I walked over, opened it, and froze. It wasn't filled with gold or jewels, but an assortment of small, random objects. A bottle cap, a cigarette butt, a pen cap, and even a white button-down shirt. I recognized that shirt. It was from a club I joined in college. They gave out uniform shirts for major events. Everyone's name was embroidered on the inside. My heart started pounding in my hands. I swallowed hard, picked up the shirt, and turned it over. Embroidered on the inside were the words, "Louis." The shirt was mine. Then what about all this other stuff? Just as I was trying to remember, a pair of hands silently wrapped around my waist, like a ghost. Before I could even be startled, my body recognized the touch. It was Adrien. What is all this? Adrien reached past me to pick up items from the box, explaining each one as he held it. His deep, husky voice was gentle, but underneath, you could feel a hidden layer of obsessive, extreme sickness. "This is the last bottle of water you drank at the track meet your sophomore year. This is the first cigarette you ever smoked. This is the first love letter I ever wrote you. I had gone from initial shock and confusion to my current state of numb rigidity. So, Adrien had a crush on me in college? Does that mean every time I thought I was sneaking a glance at him, he actually saw me? I couldn't tell if it was shame or something else, but the feeling wrapped tightly around my heart. I weakly covered his mouth. Stop. Adrien stared at me, his light-colored eyes holding nothing but me. Just one last thing, okay? I nodded, and he pulled a stack of papers from the very bottom of the box. I took them. They were medical records. Patient, Adrien Grant. Confirmed pheromone disorder. Severe adverse reaction to omega and alpha pheromones. Beta reaction undetermined. Patient, Adrien Grant. Confirmed severe paranoid personality disorder. Requires medication to manage. Patient, Adrien Grant. Glandular damage. Unable to bond with a fated omega. Dependent on beta partner. Of all the countless records, the only one I saw was the one about his damaged glands. I grabbed Adrien's arm, my voice hoarse. What happened? What happened to his glands? Why were they damaged? Adrien held me, kissing the corner of my eye. I only love you. It will only ever be you in this life. An S-class alpha's rut is intense. Without an omega's pheromones to soothe them, the pain is unbearable. But his partner was a beta, so he would rather get rid of his glands. All he wanted was his partner. I understood the meaning in Adrien's eyes, and a bitter taste spread through my throat. You were too impulsive. Adrien cupped my face, his forehead resting against mine. No, I thought it through very carefully. Loving you was something I thought about for exactly 1 second. I let the medical records slip from my fingers and leaned in to kiss him. Let's get you help. I'll be with you. Adrien paused. For how long? I willingly nestled into his arms. For life. Adrien's reply was a soft whisper. For life. You'll stay with me for life, and I'll love you for life. Adrien's POV. I actually let my love find the things in the basement on purpose. I wanted him to see the real me, so I deliberately asked him to get something from the nightstand, deliberately let him find the camera. But once he knew, I regretted it, because Louis asked for a divorce. In that instant, a corner of my world collapsed. I tried to use calmness to hide the cracks in the ice. But the moment Louis came home wrapped in a strange scent, my sanity shattered completely. I took out the drugs I had prepared long ago and poured them into the glass of milk without a tremor in my hand. Louis explained why he was home late, but I couldn't hear a word. All I saw was that he wanted a divorce, that he was going to leave me. If he really left, my world would be gone. I still remember the first time I saw him. It was the beginning of freshman year. As an upperclassman, I had to welcome the new students. I hated these events that required me to keep my mask on. I grabbed a cigarette and went to the bathroom. The nicotine helped soothe my irritation. 1 cigarette could keep my perfect gentleman facade up for another 4 hours. But I didn't expect anyone to be in there. I made eye contact with Louis as he pushed open the stall door. Through his thick bangs and black framed glasses, I saw panic in his eyes. He looked like he had just been crying. His eyes were red, like a rabbit's. He had no pheromonal scent at all. Not an alpha, not an omega. He could only be a beta. Pitiful little beta who looked like a rabbit. I stubbed out the cigarette between my fingers. The heat spread from my fingertip to my heart. He greeted me awkwardly. I smiled in reply. That night I dreamt of him. I fucked him until his eyes were even redder. He cried and called me big brother, upperclassman, husband, begging me to stop. He didn't know that just made me more excited. When I woke up to the wet patch on my bed, I think I understood what my father meant by love at first sight. He said that the day my dad, as my uncle's fiancé, came to the Grant estate, my father had just returned from abroad. With one look, he decided that alpha had to be his. I have to admit, I have my father's despicable genes. At that moment, I thought that beta has to be mine. I wanted to pull him into my arms. But I couldn't. Not yet. I looked at the people my father had placed around me to monitor me and buried my desire deep inside. My father had high expectations for me. I had to live every day wearing a mask. But now I didn't just have to survive. I had to gain power because I had something I wanted. With my dad's help, I started getting involved in the company. At the mixer, I saw the way Louis looked at me with shy eyes, and it suddenly occurred to me, maybe Louis likes me a little too? I resisted and resisted but couldn't hold back. I smiled and asked him for his contact info. Seeing how happy Louis was clutching his phone, the desire inside me grew. I had to take my father down and faster. 3 years. All I needed was 3 years. But I didn't expect an accident. My father discovered the malicious takeover of the company's shares. He wanted a full investigation, but my dad kept him tied up. I began the final harvest. The moment the Grant family business was completely in my hands, Louis had already graduated. I went to find him. He was going on arranged dates. On the surface, I smiled and reassured him, but inside, I was grinding my teeth to dust. I used the excuse of my family pressuring me and gently lured him in. Sure enough, he took the bait. The moment he said yes, the construction of my basement was officially complete. After we got married, Louis became very dependent on me. During my rut, he would always hold me carefully and say, "Husband, let me help you." An S-class alpha's rut is violent and insecure. I could only bite the back of his neck over and over, trying to pump my pheromones into him. But they wouldn't go in and they wouldn't stay. To prevent myself from going crazy and hurting him, I chose to get rid of my glands. The shots I took during my rut weren't suppressants. They were drugs to make my glands atrophy. I deliberately didn't let the needle marks heal. Seeing the pained look on Louis's face as he let me do whatever I wanted, I felt a deep satisfaction, but also an insatiable greed. What would happen if my love knew the real me? Would he divorce me? Would he leave me? The moment the thought appeared, a darkness bloomed inside me. The idea of locking him up was like a weed after the rain. It grew uncontrollably. I know I inherited my father's and my dad's psychological problems. I didn't want to hurt Louis, so I went to see a psychiatrist. The doctor said I needed inpatient treatment. I fired him. Being away from Louis would only make my condition worse. I didn't dare show him my true face. I was afraid the love in his eyes would turn to terror. So I endured. I endured for 3 years. I realized I couldn't hold it in anymore. Rather than let Louis discover it by accident, I wanted to reveal it myself. Just as I expected, he asked for a divorce. I went to my dad. He gave me a case of injections, cyan-Kaa drug that can induce a second-stage differentiation in betas, causing them to present as omegas. A redifferentiated omega, once marked by an alpha, can never leave. But I didn't use it. Looking at the man in my arms who said he would stay with me and help me get better for a lifetime, I pushed the case of drugs into the deepest corner. I guess we'll see how long a lifetime is. I hope it truly is forever. You promised me a lifetime, Louis, and I'm holding you to it.